back to another Chris the Fish 03. In this one we're going to be going through the Flowerhorn tank. Right, so you may notice there's a bit of algae on the glass as I get closer for the zoom ins, but keep an eye out and see if there's something else you can notice. You see what's going into that log? The rainbow shark that was a complete bully in the 5 foot has now gone into the Flowerhorn tank, and just like the convict cichlid, is actually doing really well in there. He hasn't bothered the Flowerhorns and they haven't bothered him. However, since Freya's gone back in, you can see she's darkened up. Her vent is actually out at the bottom, so whether she's trying to breed or what, I don't know. But then at the same time, if you can have a look at the... yeah, he's gonna be a wind up now, isn't he? If you can see on the side of his nuchal hump or his cock, well, there you go, you can see a chunk there. And then if I come over this side, you can see a massive chunk has been taken out of that side as well. Now there's nothing been taken out of her, so she seems to be fine. I've done a load of research on the Flowerhorns lately, and it does seem to be that that's the little process that they go through. Now I think she's just being protective of that log because she might have possibly laid some eggs in there, but at the same time we've also got the plex. We've got 2 plex to keep the algae down, even though it don't seem to be working on the front of the glass. You can tell by the amount of poo on the bottom, that's from the plex keeping the tank clean, so I've got to do a big water change on it. But I just basically wanted to give you a quick run through. I don't do many educational videos, it's more of a vlog. But at the same time, I just wanted to give you a run through on the Flowerhorns. Alright, so I'm going to try and do some key facts on these beauties. So obviously the first one you're going to obviously know is the fact that the Flowerhorns are a man-made fish. They are a hybrid, just like the parrot cichlids. And then the genetic history for them is unknown at the moment, but there is so many different mixes and breeds within it. Like you've got Texases, you've got dovies, you've got parrots, you've got so many different things. The next one is that they are a really aggressive fish. Now, yes, to us, they are absolutely stunning. They're like little puppies. It is one of the best pet fish that you can have, because they're really interactive with you. But to put other fish in is usually a bad idea. So when it comes to tank mates, it is a real hit and miss. Now again, when it comes to tank mates, when it comes to things like decorations and stuff in the tank as well, a lot of it when it comes to Flowerhorns is down to the interaction with obviously the owner. So if you want a really interactive fish, you have a completely plain tank and just the one fish. But adding decorations, adding plants, adding other tank mates, that can also take away from the interaction because it gives them something else to play with. Now, as I said before, I am very lucky to be able to have what tank mates in here that are in here. But when it comes to the Flowerhorns as well, you've also got short-bodied Flowerhorns as well as obviously these normal guys. Now the short bodies often live about 4 to 5 years, whereas the long-bodied ones like this guy, he can live between 8 and 12 years. All depends on how well you look after them, how many times you do water changes, whether you keep it clear, you test your waters and everything else. This is probably the only tank that I do actually test my water on, just to make sure. When it comes to things like the feedings as well, obviously they have a varied diet. They will eat literally anything, but with me, I've learnt not to feed them prawns. That was a bad idea. But then I've feed mealworms, flakes, spirulina, daphina, pellets. I just feed them pretty much a varied diet and they seem to eat everything. As I say, they've eaten the prawns before, but then that's where she got prolapsed, so I definitely won't be doing that again. Again, when it comes to things like the size as well, they can go between 12 to 16 inches maybe, all depending on the type of the Flowerhorn, the size of the tank, how well you look after them and things like that. Now when it comes to the tank itself, obviously you're going to need a big tank, so these guys can get massive. So this, as I say, is a 480 litre tank. So for now this is perfect for these guys. They've got plenty of space to move. It's a deep tank, it's a high tank, you know what I mean? So they've got plenty of time to grow, but eventually there is a definite case that I will have to sort out, obviously getting a bigger tank for them or something like that, maybe even another tote, but that is a long way down the line. You can see on the top I have got a flow going. I've got the 2 spray bars, but I've also got my bubbles. That one is pathetic at the moment, so I've got to edit it, but because they're such a strong fish, they love to be able to play in the flow, and obviously if they're getting blown around, you know that you got your flow way too strong. When it comes to the substrate, you're best either having a bare bottom or sand substrate, or some people will use like tiles on the bottom. Reason being is if you're feeding them things like pellets and stuff, they could eat the stones thinking it's the pellets, and then you're going to have an issue. You're going to have a digestive problem and things like that. So again, that's another one that you've got to try and keep in mind. I mean, like personally I prefer to have sand because I do not like having bare bottom tanks. Obviously when it comes to the water parameters, because it's a man-made fish, you do not find them in the wild unless they've been released in there, but then that's where it becomes into an invasive species. They do kind of fluctuate in the pH. They can settle for pretty much anything. They usually go between 6 and 8 on the pH. They like to have the temperature between 25 and 28 degrees. So they are a warm tropical fish. So you've got to make sure that your heaters are always working, because if they don't, obviously you're going to be in big trouble. Same with like your water quality as well. They can be really sensitive to things like ammonia and the nitrates and things like that, and it can cause them a lot of problems. So you've got to make sure that you do keep your tanks clean and keep up with your water changes. Again, when it comes to the feeding, I haven't done it yet, but you can also feed them like dried crickets and grasshoppers and things like that. I've tried feeding them the prawns, as I say, it didn't work, but again they do eat all the other frozen foods and all the dried foods that I feed them, so I'm quite happy for that. You've got to feed them probably 2-3 times a day. There is videos on how much to feed them and how often. It's just like anything else. Obviously you've just got to make sure that when you do put food in, it does get eaten. It's not hovering around at the bottom of the tank, because that's where you will then get obviously ammonia and stuff like that. So again, if you do overfeed and they don't eat it, make sure that you do obviously clean the tank after. As I said before, this guy is one of many species. So both of them actually are a camphor flowerhorn. You can tell by the beautiful colour and the size of the hump on the head. Now the hump, as I say, can be known as a nuchal hump or a cock, K-O-K. But again, you get different ones of those as well. So you've got like a water cock, which is basically exactly as it sounds. It is just full of water, and the larger humps are what's more desired in a flowerhorn as well. So camphor has got to be probably one of the most popular like flowerhorn types to have. When it comes to look, you can see straight away, like I was saying earlier, the male will start to dig a nest. So in the sand he's there spitting it around, waving it around. It's fun to watch, but if you've got OCD with your tanks, it's a pain in the backside. But yeah, tank mates, they usually suggest things like plecos or tiger oscars, large bichas, other large cichlids, things like that. But again, it's a hit and a miss. They can get along with things, or they could just try and attack anything. So as I say, I could put an Oscar in, but it could go horribly wrong and then you're back to square one. I've just got, as I say, the convict cichlid, the rainbow shark, and the 2 plex in there. You can see the rainbow sharks chasing around the convict. That's exactly what he was doing in the other tank. But again, as I say, I've got the female flowerhorn in with the parrot cichlids and stuff as well. And you definitely wouldn't be able to keep like shrimps or snails or crayfish or anything like that in the tank, purely because they would just absolutely destroy them. It would just basically be food. Same as I was saying earlier, interaction is what these guys love. So if you're going to be putting things like plants and toys and stuff in there, then they'll be more interested in that than they would with you. Now with the tank, it's got to be roughly about 150 gallons or so, but I think when they say that, that's more like the US version. So I'm going to say about 400 litres to 500 litres depending on the size. Obviously with every fish tank, the bigger the better. And again, you've got, because they're so messy as well, you need to make sure that you've got good filtration. So I did have these guys in the Rena 300, and that did have a 2000 APS canister filter on it. They've now got a 480 litre tank, and it's got a sump on it as well. So the sump obviously does a lot better job. When it comes to the lighting, these guys really ain't fussy. I mean, like for example, I've got 2 different lights on this. Not that you can tell a massive difference on the camera, but the lighting is just purely for my views, and obviously it lights up the flowerhorn a hell of a lot better as well. So I could do it darker or I could do it lighter, you know what I mean? But I'm going to be switching from these T5s eventually anyway into an LED. I've just got to try and be able to sort it out. If you do put any decoration in, I would not suggest putting fake plants in, because if they do try and eat them, then obviously it could get stuck in their digestive systems. If you put real plants in, then it will just become food. They reckon things like large rocks, driftwood and things like that are going to be more common for them. Obviously I've got a couple of clay pots and a big wooden log, but even that is plastic, purely because it gives them hide. So if he does decide to get a little bit aggressive towards her, then she's got somewhere to go then, and he can't get in there either. And as I said before, yes, they are in their little breeding phase at the moment, but it is highly unlikely that a male flowerhorn will be fertile. Most of them are infertile. So yes, she could lay eggs all day, every day. Doesn't necessarily mean he can make anything come of them. But again, at the same time, if you had a parrot cichlid, it could work the same. A lot of the parrot cichlids are also infertile. But if you had, for example, say my female flowerhorn in here was to lay eggs, there could be a male parrot that could come along and fertilise them. But again, I don't do it for the breeding. So you've got plenty of fish in here that would eat them. You've got the plex and stuff in this tank that would eat them. So I don't exactly try. There is methods. If you do want to breed your flowerhorns, there is ways to do it, like separate breeding tanks and splitting them up, putting them together, putting dividers in. There's a big process to it, but again, it just depends on whether you wanted to do it or not. Now they can have between 500 to 2,000 fry. Whether they all survive is very unlikely. Here, look, just as we're saying this, look, they're doing their little breeding dance, having a little pop at each other. So this is why, look at them circling, it's like they're about to start a scrap. But I've watched videos and I did panic massively when they started this. But it is a flowerhorn thing, or mainly a cichlid thing. They do literally rip lumps out of each other while they're doing it. But again, I don't try to do the breeding side of it. And another thing, if you're not going to get to see it on him because he just loves looking at you. But you can tell the difference between the males and the females, mainly when they're younger, because a female, would you shift to the side? on the fins at the top, the female, the colour or the pattern will go into the fins. Now you can see with her, oh, if I move my hand, you can see with her how her pattern goes up into her fins, even though she's a bit dark, whereas his doesn't. His is just clear. So again, that's one thing. And then, as I say, when they get older, obviously they also have their big nuchal hump. It's very rare. It can happen, but it is rare that a female will have a nuchal hump. So again, it's one of them. Even a lot of the males, depending on the species, a lot of the males don't have them either. Right, so as I say, this has been the first somewhat educational video. I just thought I'd do a video based purely on Odin and Freya and how amazing these fish are. The amount of people that have turned around and says, why don't you sell him? These guys go for about 150 plus quid, especially as beautiful as he is. But again, they're also saying you've got this one massive fish, you've got a big empty tank, you could do so much more with it. I mean, like, if you look at how well decorated and stocked that tank is compared to this one, yes, this one has got a lot more potential, but this guy is my favourite by far. He is so amazing, there is no chance on earth I would ever get rid of him. And you can see the reason why this asshole rainbow is in this tank. Alright, so now I've opened the lid, this guy knows it's coming. Look, straight away, on it like a carb on it, she'll come along. See how you can still see hers in a gob? Him, he just swallows it all in one go. So he's had about 4 pellets, she's still working on the one. But then obviously because of the other fish, I've still got to put like algae wafers in for these guys and some flake for these. But he will happily munch on that, and he's got, you can see he's still eating it. Yeah. Right, so I'm going to leave it at that. I've told you as much as I possibly can remember, or that I've learned all about these beautiful creatures here. So if you have liked it and you want me to do something similar again, drop a comment down below, let me know. If there's anything specific you want me to focus on, again, drop a comment down below. All the interactions will always get answered. Everybody that comments, thank you. You know, all of the ones saying, oh, great video, or you can change this, you could do that, do a video on this, do a video on that. I'll always reply. If I can do it, I'll do it. I ain't got no problem. At the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are watching it. If there's something you want me to do that you're happy to watch, let me know. But from me, Odin, Freya and the other randoms, for this video, you've even seen him feeding. So for this video, we're going to say bye-bye. So Odin, say bye-bye.